As a financial advisor and father of 6 children, I've obviously had thousands of conversations about money. And in our family, we have a wide range of personalities, obviously, as you would expect with that many kids. And one of the common phrases we hear from some of our kids, one in particular more than others, but other people, is explain it to me like I'm a third grader. And then sometimes explain it to me like I'm five. Of course, we're big Office fans in our family, so that might tell you a little bit about our sense of humor and the things we like. But one of the things we talked about on one of our family trips was we should change the finance nerd videos to just basically explain it to me like I'm five or explain it like I'm a third grader. And my daughter Corryn was the one who came up with that, and she's probably the one most often who says, "Hey, Dad, explain this to me." So we thought, why not share the conversations we've had with others? Because if one person's thinking it, thousands of other people probably are.
Yeah.
And the thing that launched this, Corinne, was a story that you had and the difficulties you have just dealing with money as a stay-at-home mom of 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of explain to me like what you were telling us.
So you want to hear my Walmart story?
Let's hear your Walmart story.
All right. So let's see. I had my youngest. He's 3.5 now. And we went to Walmart. And I think my oldest was at school or something. So thankfully it was just the one. I thought this will be an easy trip. We go to Walmart. And it's Walmart. So I'm buying like a bunch of stuff. And I think I bought it fell into like 5 different budgets, right? And so my husband and I, we use the app, You Need a Budget, and it works fairly well. It's kind of like an electronic envelope system, right? Which works pretty well for me. But we finish our trip through Walmart, we get into the car, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to take a couple minutes right now. I'm going to put this receipt into the app, so I'm good to go. Blake did not agree with that. And so he needs to go down for his nap. So we ended up I decided I'll wait. I'll come do it later. I take him home. I get him his lunch. I get him down for his nap. He decides he does not want to actually take a nap. So he does not take a nap.
He's 3.
Because he's 3.
And he's a boy.
He's got way too much energy. And so
Did he say, no thanks?
No thanks. No thanks. I was like, buddy, now's a great time to nap. This is a time to rest so we can have a good rest of our day. No thanks. So yeah, I ended up just being like, okay, forget it. We'll just play a little longer. So we play a little bit. And I think then later on I had to get dinner going. And then Dustin comes home from work, Aurora's up from school, and then it's just chaos. And we've got the rest of our evening. We do our bedtime routine. Finally, it's like, okay, the kids are down. I've got like an hour of time to spend with Dustin before we're going to go to bed. And I'm like, now I have to finally do the receipt, right? And it's a whole thing. It just takes forever. And then it's trying to remember, on the receipts, nothing is listed clearly. It's all abbreviated and ridiculous. And so I'm trying to remember what was this
Pull out
random
the calculator app.
Exactly. I've got to open up my calculator, add together what are the things for the pets, what are the things for the house, what are the things for like personal budgets, food. It's just chaos. It's complicated, and it's hard when life gets in the way.
Yeah, and one of the phrases that, and we're not throwing Dustin, your husband, under the bus, because one thing we'll talk about is money personalities.
Yeah.
He's in IT, so he's a logical, data-driven person.
Yes.
But on this trip, you had said, look, I got this. It was only $2.
It was only $2, Doc. Isn't that great?
And his response was?
He goes, you only $2 us to death every month.
Right.
Which is true.
Which then turned into a conversation about the apps.
Yeah.
And which we're big. I love You Need a Budget.
Yeah, it's great.
We also like Faith Fi, which used to be MoneyWise, which is a Christian-driven budgeting app that in theory works if you use it.
Yeah.
And, Dustin's response obviously kind of set you off because he said, well, just put it in the app. Put it in the app in the van.
Right.
And
which is such a great idea. It's a good idea in theory, right? You finish up in the store, you get the kids loaded up in the car, and it's like, okay, mommy's just going to work for 5 minutes. And it really is. It's just me going through, adding up all the different things for each budget item. And I'd say about 50% of the time, that's what I do. But the other 50% of the time, I don't have time because Blake's screaming and we have somewhere else to go. And it is what it is.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on your bank, When you
Oh
get
my
to the
goodness.
van, it doesn't know you've just used your debit card
Right.
or credit card. Sometimes people use credit cards like
Yeah.
Discover,
Yep.
that gives you rewards, and
Mhm.
then you pay that off every month.
Yeah.
That might not show up for 3 days for
Right.
your app.
Exactly.
So how do you handle that?
Well, one thing, what I do like about, at least with You Need a Budget, I haven't used MoneyFi personally, or Finance.
FaithFi.
FaithFi, that's the
Mhm.
one. But I use Nope. I use You Need a Budget. And what's nice about that is you can add a transaction. So even if it hasn't already come in, I can add it and it'll just sync up later. At least I'm told that's what it does.
Well,
Dustin
here's the
handles
problem
that.
with that. If you put $103.46
Oh, yeah.
and it was actually $103.47,
Yeah.
it will not sync up.
It
You'll
will not.
actually have two transactions.
Yeah.
And now you'll be way over budget and not know why.
Yep. But again, once I put it in the budget, that's Dustin.
Why are there double charges? Oh, I don't know, Dustin. That's your app.
That's all you, buddy. But yeah, so no, I try to stay on top of actually putting it in the app as the transactions go through. But it's hard when you've got the kids with you.
Mhm.
So
And I think that's something that, me being a numbers person and data person, but not the stay-at-home mom.
right.
It's hard for me to understand because I've said the same thing. Just put it in the app.
Right.
Like it's simple.
Yeah.
But you describing that, it was kind of eye-opening. And one of the things, with our family, thankfully your mom, my wife, is also a data-driven person. We have very similar money personalities, which is not normal. Typically, you would end up marrying your opposite because it's boring to be with the same person. I love it. I think it's fantastic because I know how she thinks. But, I would always be like, saving. I want to be a saver.
Yeah.
And I was saying at the time with 4 kids was the first time I said, why do we never have any money left over at the end of the month? There's no way we should not have some extra money.
Yeah.
And finally, she said, you think it's so easy? Why don't you do it?
Do it yourself.
And I was like, okay, cool. I'll do it. And I'm going to own this thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to man this to like, we're going to have a grocery list and I'm going to line out our meals and we're going to do it. And I think you've talked about this with Dustin, and you only have 2 kids in school. Well, really 1 in school.
1 in school. Yeah.
September rolls around. You already did back to school budget. You got clothes.
Yep.
But then what's the first expense that pops up?
School projects.
School projects. Oh, we just need to run and spend, $45 on supplies because we don't have all these supplies.
Even worse than that, Spirit Weeks that just pop
Spirit
up.
Weeks. Oh my gosh, Spirit Weeks. Mommy, I really want this. Oh, we don't have red, white, and blue ribbons. We
Yeah.
don't have a tie-dye shirt.
Believe it or not, I wasn't expecting to dress you up as Abraham Lincoln this week.
That's right. So those things with 4 kids were just like, I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Like maybe we need a bigger kids budget.
Right.
And then I'm looking at our spreadsheet going, well, shoot, now we don't have any money left over. So it took me about 2 weeks of me doing it myself to kind of have that compassion of like, wow, this is really hard.
Yeah. Oh,
And I think for a financial advisor, that's made me more understanding of I can't just tell people, get a budget. It's easy.
right.
Because it is not easy.
No,
and
it's not.
I think if you're the money personality like me, where you're just like numbers, it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Having that, whether it's empathy or actually trying to put yourself in that other person's shoes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think is important. And one thing that I like that you and Dustin do that kind of gives you guys that sense of empathy and puts you on the same page is what you guys try to do every week. So kind of explain that.
Yeah, so we have our weekly debriefs is kind of what we call them, right? And so usually on Sundays is where it kind of falls the best for us. But we'll just sit down together and kind of be like, okay, how was your week? And we like to check in with each other, just like logistically, right? Like, did you get all the jobs that you wanted to get done? For him, it's like the outside of the house. Did you catch up on all your yard work that you wanted to get done? Inside of the house, chores, right? Also just like mentally, like where are you mentally? Are you feeling overwhelmed by anything? Things like that. But what really works out is financially we check in with one another. This also kind of gives me a deadline of I need to make sure that I'm up to date on all the transactions that I have. Like I've purchased things, but I may not have entered it into the app or gone through and maybe approved the things that have just kind of automatically come in, right? I try to make sure that I have all those things done by Sunday or Saturday, whenever it is that we're doing our weekly debrief. And so it works out because then we're able to once a week kind of check in with one another. We pull up the app and we look at it and we're kind of like, okay, like this is how we're doing in this budget. The kids are doing really well. Personal budget, Corryn, you're getting a little high up there. And I'm like, yes, I am. whatever it ends up being. But that weekly check-in has really helped when we do it. And when we don't,
it kind of gets to be chaotic.
Oh, it's rough. Yeah. It becomes something where it's like, now I don't just have 1 week's worth of transactions, which like for other stay-at-home moms, well, for any family, but like, especially as a stay-at-home mom, like I'm looking for any opportunity to get out of the house. And so if like we can get out of the house and it's summer, I'm not interested in going to the park.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Find
you want to
something
go,
indoors.
you want to run around? Let's go run around through Target, you
Yeah.
know? But try to have me to go inside Target to get the kids to run around, and I'm not going to buy something.
That's only $2.
That's only $2,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, there's just, there's always, even if it's just little transactions here and there, there's a lot to stay up on top of. And so, yeah, the weekly debriefs are really good. They kind of help both of us stay on track. And if it is something where it's like, oh, the kids' budget is getting pretty high, I'm like, yeah, we went to the dollar store more than once this
Yeah.
week, and we can't leave there without getting
I
some
mean, your
little
kids are
something.
adorable. How can you tell them no?
What am I going to do? Not let them get the little $2 bouncy
That's
ball?
right.
We have 1,000.
Schmerial.
Schmerial. A little knockoff
Yeah.
Ariel in the store. But yeah, and so that kind of helps. Dustin's able to see, like, well, why have you purchased so many things for the pets, or why have you purchased so many things for the kids? And then I can either it is eye-opening for me and being like, okay, I really need to make sure that I'm minimizing the spending on those guys for the rest of the month, or here's what it is.
Yeah.
These were necessity items that, like, actually this month, our dog ended up needing to go to the vet because she got an ear infection, and so medicine's expensive,
Dogs
whatever
are
it ends up being.
expensive.
Dogs are expensive.
Yeah, and that was
so-
the other thing. I mean, we had the tiny small dog.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then I saw the vet budget, and I'm like, why are we spending that much? And one vet trip just blows up your whole...
It's nuts.
It's like, oh, by the way, their teeth are falling out, and if you don't do this, you're a terrible pet owner.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
then you're like, I guess we have to pay it.
Oh my goodness, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's the debriefs are nice. They're
Yeah.
good for him understanding and for me to kind of keep me in check.
And I like it because it was a good compromise, because you're a free spirit,
Yeah.
which
I'm
we
a
all
spontaneous
love.
spender.
Yeah, which is great in life because you're fun to be around, but it's also tough when you're trying, especially with 2 young kids, and you have all these goals, and kids just keep getting more expensive, and food gets more expensive. And so it's a good way for you guys to kind of stay on the same page and alleviate the conflict so it
Yeah.
doesn't get too far down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting, like you being our daughter, and we talk nature nurture.
Yeah.
And literally, especially for our 4 oldest kids, who you guys lived a different financial lifestyle, because as a small business owner, and like we were struggling most of your life at home.
Yeah.
And so we were always tight, and we only get paid once a month.
Right.
And so we tried to be very open with that. And that meant a lot of restrictions. And like, I don't know if you remember how, like a trip to McDonald's when they had the $1 menu,
Yep. Yep.
the personalities would come out. We'd say like, okay, everybody gets $3.
Yep.
And if you want to get it on food, great. Otherwise, water is free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you would spend $3 on maybe a soda,
Oh yeah.
French fries,
Yep.
possibly just an ice cream cone.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
whereas some of your other siblings were like, well, if water's free, I'm going to actually get more
I get
food.
a water and I'll get more food. Yeah.
And that started to be eye-opening for us, of like, you guys spend money differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we started getting you to be adults, we thought, oh, here's a spreadsheet that me and mom use.
Yeah.
This will help you. And you were failing miserably.
Yes. I
Like-
really was.
And so tell us what we came up with that I thought was brilliant, that worked for you personally.
Yeah, it was great. We ended up doing cash envelopes. Cash envelopes, so that way it wasn't just the idea of $50 for however long, right? It was, I could physically see that money in the envelope. And so anytime I wanted to buy something, it was, I have to take the money from the envelope,
Yeah.
spend the money, right? And now I can physically see there's really not that much left. It's I don't know, for me, maybe it's because I'm a visual person or what, but to actually see what money I had and then spend that money, it was just, yeah, it clicked with me different than just seeing the number. Like for the app, right? Like I've got like a little widget on my home screen that says, all right, these are the top 3 budgets that I kind of use the most. And to see that number kind of go down is one thing, but it's definitely different.
Yeah.
When we were younger, using the cash envelopes for me was.
Yeah, you thrived, and we did things like we charged you rent,
Yes. That
but
was
then we were
great.
actually putting it aside.
Sneaky.
Yeah,
guys.
because we knew you're not a saver. And we had even told your our oldest son, I guess they're all your younger siblings.
Yeah.
But we had told him, if you're saving money, we're not going to charge you rent.
Right.
We just need to see your savings account going up. Well, yours was not going
It
up.
was not going up.
So we charge you rent, and that became forced savings to the
Yeah.
point of we're like, go buy yourself a car.
Yep.
Like, and you were like, how did I get this much money?
like,
And we're like,
"What?"
you were saving this much via rent.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow. Like,
That was
but
really eye-opening for me too, as I was like, whoa, I didn't realize, like, I mean, I knew it in theory,
Mhm.
where it was like, yeah, if you just save money, you're gonna have money because you've been
Yeah.
not spending it, right? But to actually witness it kind of come to fruition like that was,
Yeah.
it was cool. Yeah.
and what we like about You Need a Budget or FaithFi
Yeah.
is it is a digital envelope, because
Yeah.
say you go over on the pets category,
Mhm.
you have a decision like, where can I find that $100
Right.
out of a different envelope?
Yep.
And the physical envelopes, you would have to say, I'm taking it out of my fund money and I'm
Yeah.
going to this.
Yep.
Or my fund money is gone. I guess
Yeah.
I can't do
I
anything.
was gonna say, I was like, not the fun money, Dad. That one was gone
Yeah.
real quick.
And I know it's not as secure. I know
Yeah.
it's inconvenient, but for some people,
Mhm.
and this is kind of the debate you and Dustin have been having of
Yeah.
you just putting it in an app versus giving yourself envelope for certain categories,
Yeah.
I think is super important.
Mhm.
And so that for people who struggle, getting that physical cash is something that I love, that,
Yep.
maybe people go back to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know for me, the one budget that I will pretty much consistently go over in is my personal spending money.
Yeah.
And so that's the one that we're like, all right, we're really considering just like, maybe I'm just going to just do it in cash. Cause it's, once you run out of it there with the money on a card or on Apple Pay or whatever, the money still comes from somewhere. I can still buy the
Yep.
drink or the snack or whatever, and so it still works. And then that is a tomorrow's problem to figure out where that money is really coming
Yep.
from. And so, or versus maybe I just have not done as good of a job updating the app. And so it looks like I have money left in my budget, when in reality I don't. I just haven't updated the transactions,
Yep.
And so, but if you have physical cash, there's no questioning it. Either
Yeah.
there's money in the envelope or there's not.
That's right.
So,
So we'll keep lobbying for you.
yeah.
As we joke with Dustin, we've known her a little bit longer than you, and we've had the strategy, and
Yeah.
and we even find like my spending money
Yeah.
has to go into cash. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I'm the same way, because I don't do our budget.
Right.
Your mom does, and so I'm just like, I have money on my card. I'm gonna keep spending it.
That's right.
And then she's like, "What's this $150?
Yeah.
At Dick's Sporting Goods?" I'm like, I don't even remember by now.
I don't even remember.
But if it's-
Genuinely, do
yeah.
not even remember.
But if
Yep.
it's my cash and I look at my wallet, I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
and
it's
I
so much
literally
more real.
like, people laugh. I'm like, I haven't got my allowance. I don't have
Yeah.
any cash.
Exactly.
But I have to have that because I'm not the one seeing it.
100%.
I think that's good. Hopefully this gives them strategies.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear in the comments
Mhm.
maybe things that you've done, because
Yeah.
where I want to shift to, and I touched on it earlier, is
Yeah.
money personalities.
Oh yeah.
Is you have to know yourself.
Yep.
And we just talked about your strategy of you are a free spender, so you have to know ways to rein it in. And that's
Mhm.
something we do with our investing, is we need to know your personality.
Yeah.
And what I found fascinating, and I think as a parent this becomes important, is how we as parents talk about money can influence your children's money personality.
Definitely.
And even though you teach them the same way, and
Yeah.
you might even have the same DNA, their personalities end up vastly different.
Absolutely.
And one thing we talked about, my upbringing was lived in a small town. My parents worked for my grandfather's small business.
Mhm.
It was a farming community, so there was times where we had no money and we didn't. But my parents were never open about that. They were just always really, really tight with money.
Right.
And, we were lucky to get an allowance.
Mhm.
I had to go out and earn money.
Yep.
So I never got to get big items.
Yeah.
And so because I had handcuffs on me,
Mhm.
the second I had money as an 18-year-old, like I remember I got $500 for graduation, immediately went to a stereo. I got $250 for Christmas, immediately bought a Nintendo.
Yep,
Like I
yep.
never had savings.
Yeah.
Got that first credit card offer. Sweet. You mean if I spend $1,000, I only have to pay $150 next month? Like,
Yeah.
all right.
Free money.
like it was just like, because they were so strict, which was not a bad thing.
Sure.
I never learned to save. I just always like, well, I never got this cool stuff growing up and my friends did, so I spent it.
Yeah.
And you were kind of that way. So we were trying to educate you and do things and
Yeah.
did that. But your siblings, including your sister who's here doing our producing, same upbringing. She became an extremely great saver.
Oh yeah.
And to the point of like, we just had to say, here's our spreadsheet. And she's like, okay. And she tells her husband, like, this is our spreadsheet. We're doing it. Like, and it was just like, we raised you literally the exact same way.
Yeah.
But you couldn't be fit into the same box as your sister.
Right.
And I think the more funny thing is your twins, who are now 17,
Yeah.
they grew up in a different financial family. You always joke, well, you have different parents than we
were
did.
raised by very different parents. Yeah.
And we have become looser, literally, thank God.
Yeah.
Like we've worked the same amount, the same work ethic your entire life.
Yes.
Things fell into place, and we truly believe it's the grace of God. Like we got lucky.
Yeah.
Just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to be financially independent. We know that.
Yeah.
But we have been looser with money because we hate it. We wanted to do more fun things with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we do joke, like, I feel like we had better experiences. Like you talk about, hey, we went to Target.
Yeah.
Well, I remember a good night with you guys was load up the bikes and go to the school so you can ride your bikes.
Exactly. Yes.
Like free. Go to the
100%.
park, have a picnic.
Yep.
But the twins were like, well, we're a lot older now because you were 12 when they were born.
Yeah. 12.
So you were already hitting preteen, teenage years.
The fun years.
Yeah. Maybe a whole other podcast. Parenting advice for teens. What not to do. And that's the other thing. We joke. You were trial 1. Cody was trial 2. Cordy and Tyler were trial 3.
Yep.
The twins are trial 4.
Yep.
There's no manual for that.
Oh gosh, no.
And that includes, like, it's been eye-opening, like I said, of we can raise the twins, same DNA, same nurturing, same life lessons. And one of them is like you.
Yep.
And he is a free spending. Like, he's literally asking to borrow money to buy things before he gets paid. Whereas the other one, we had to force him to spend money almost. Like, we looked at his savings account and he was borrowing my guitars.
Yes.
I'm like, buddy.
Just buy your own, my guy.
It's fun.
You can afford it.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't know. I don't like seeing my balance go down. And it's kind of the same way, the difference between you and your sister of one's a saver, one's a spender. And we have to treat you differently.
Definitely.
And I think that's important for parents to know, to teach your kids, you've got a different personality. Here's some guardrails for you. And with the savers, it's almost like, hey, it's okay to enjoy your money once in a while.
You can spend it. That's what it's
like,
for.
Don't be a hoarder.
Yep.
We joke, your brother, the saver,
yeah,
babysitting your kids. He's like, well, only if she pays me handsomely. I'm like, you got enough money, buddy.
You can afford it, my guy.
You could be a little more generous.
Yeah.
So it's something that we as parents, I think, just need to work with. And then with your spouse, even before marriage, that's why I like what Courtney did.
Yeah.
And I think Dustin did it a little bit as well.
Yeah, he did.
So far, all of our kids who got married, before marriage, we said, here's a general guideline for budgeting.
Yeah.
You guys figure out what works for you. Who's going to be the one recording things? Who's going to be the one doing day to day?
Yeah.
Like, it's really important in a relationship before you're even married to figure that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a huge thing. And especially because that's such a huge strain on marriages. I'm sure you know the statistic better than me. But with that being such a huge part of stress on a marriage is finances. I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just being raised by a money guy, but like that was always like a very important part of relationships is figuring out how that's going to work out. Go figure it out before you're in it,
Yes.
Yeah.
And then be adaptable.
Yes.
Because Mom and I have had so many trials of this worked, this didn't work.
Yeah.
Using a Discover card and paying it off
Yep.
works so long as it's syncing to your app.
Yes.
If Discover stops syncing.
That's the other thing with apps. I don't know. Did we say that earlier? Because it's huge. Is if the bank or the card doesn't sync with your app, that can cause a whole 1 month that happened with our app, and we were like, "What's happening? What is happening with our like?" There's no way Corryn hasn't spent that much money. Corryn had spent that much money, guys. It just wasn't syncing. But yeah.
Yeah, being flexible, adjusting, and that's, I think that's important. Is the communication you guys have, I think, is a good life lesson.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't need to be weekly. I think for you it has to be.
Has to be for me, for sure.
and just figuring out what works as a couple is really important. The last thing I think we should talk about, and it's something that I briefly mentioned, is that through the grace of God, we made it.
Absolutely.
And one thing that we found shaped the personalities for both me, your mom, you, your siblings, was us following a biblical principle on money of, if you're doing the right things, God will provide.
Yeah.
And kind of tell me, like, the way you might take that too far sometimes.
Okay, so yeah, basically, I'll say this. Growing up, me and we'll just say me and Cody, right? Oldest two, only a year and a half apart. I remember hearing from both of you guys, things are tough, things are tight, but God will provide. What I heard was God will provide. And
No matter what.
No matter what, God will provide. And so I am definitely a little bit more of a spontaneous spender. And I don't have a lot of like the stress and anxiety financially. I definitely feel like I'm like, no, like we honor God with our lives. We honor God with our spending. I'm not out spending my money on things that wouldn't honor God, I guess. I don't know. But like, I try to be responsible with it. I tell my daughter this. Anytime she wants to go out and be like, can we get ice cream after gymnastics today? I'm like, girl, I would love to get ice cream after gymnastics today. Let's look at our money budgets. And we check it. I'm like, love, we don't have money for it. And she's like, well, why can't we get it anyway? And I'm like,
and she's 7.
She's 7.
So this is a good.
This is. We try to really be open with her about it. Obviously, age appropriate open. And she'll be like, well, why can't we just get it anyway? And I'm like, well, babe, God's given us this money and we have to be responsible with it. We have to show God that he can trust us with this money. If we spend it all on ice cream, and then of course, you know, working with a 7-year-old here, right? I'm like, if we spend it all on ice cream, how are we going to go to Busch Gardens? Or how are we going to go do anything else, really?
How are we going to do gymnastics next month?
Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, growing up, I heard God will provide. And I was like, yes, he will. Versus Cody, I think was like, he heard more so the other side, where it was things are tough, got to be tight, got to be strict with it. He's always been so much more like intentional and savings focused, right? A lot more planning focused.
Doesn't waste money.
Does not waste his money.
To a fault sometimes. No offense, Cody. Like, it's like, but you can afford that.
You can afford it. Yeah, you can.
But I love it. Like, because he's
absolutely.
saving and being very frugal. And
yes,
that is being a good steward of your money.
100% it is. 100%. There's a reason he has his job and I don't.
Yes, Cody is a financial advisor as well.
Yeah.
He loves helping people figure it out.
I don't think I should be advising anybody.
I mean, this is a good point though, but you are advising people, because one thing at SCM that we require is we need both spouses in on our meetings.
Yeah.
Because we need the non-numbers person to be bought in.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love what Dustin's doing with you. And why we started this was, you come to me because Dustin will say something that's way up here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're like, so Dustin mentioned this.
Yeah, I'm like, Dad, I don't really get it. He's talking to me about this, and it's not clicking. And it's just the dad in you, I guess. He's still learning. His oldest
That's
is
right.
only 7. He hasn't quite yet learned. He's getting better at it, but you've always been able to explain things to me in a way that I can understand, that also doesn't come off as condescending, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do. And
yeah.
And he doesn't try to do that either, but he has,
no, definitely.
Like you said, he doesn't have the experience.
Exactly.
But I wanted to, we didn't even write this down of things to talk about, but talking about your daughter and like life lessons.
Yeah.
We want to be the grandparents that we always wanted.
Yeah.
But we also want to still teach them lessons about money.
Oh my goodness.
And your daughter, who just loves being outside, loves helping. She did a sleepover with us. We had yard work to do. And the first time, I don't know what we did. We cleaned up sticks.
Sticks, something, yeah.
And I went up and in my wallet, I did not have any one. So I'm like, well, $5. And she's like, Papa gave me $5.
Yep.
And then I don't know if she spent it right away or she kind of accumulated it.
I think she was accumulating. She was saving up for her favorite. She found some sunglasses at Walgreens that she really wanted.
Yeah.
She was saving up for them.
But then it was funny, and then another time she came and she worked for me, and I think I only had a 10, and so she got a 10. And she's just like, I saw it happen.
Yeah.
And then so next sleepover, we had sticks to pick up in the yard. We'd had a bad storm.
Yeah.
I was going to do it, and I'm like, well, Aurora's coming over.
Yeah.
So let's go. I'll save it for her.
Yeah.
And she got her little Power Wheels tractor out that we have, and she got her gloves on.
Yeah.
And she got everything loaded up. And she picked up like one stick, and then she decided she was going to go play with the dogs.
Yep.
And then she decided she was going to collect acorns because she wanted the squirrels to have food. And we got done, and we literally had picked up one stick in an hour. And I saw the yard was full of sticks still.
Yeah.
And you came to pick her up, and she goes, Papa, I never got paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, Papa asked you to do a job, and you did not do the job.
Yep.
And like the look on her face was like, how dare
like,
you?
Hold on, what?
Yeah. But again, 7-year-old,
Yeah.
we're like, we want to reward you for work.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you played. I love that you were feeding the squirrels.
Yep.
But the job you were hired to do required sticks that you could see. When you leave, I'm going to still be picking up sticks.
Right.
And then she was even like, well, can I come over tomorrow and pick up sticks? Like,
That's right.
At least it clicked.
It did. Well, and I'll say this, it really clicked with her because I think about a week later, I heard her talking to her little brother and he was wanting I think he saw her little pile of money that she has saved up in the kitchen somewhere, right? And he was like, oh, like, can I have some of that? And she was like, no, you have to work. You have to work with Papa to get money from him. And he said, oh, I just go ask Papa. And I said, no. I'm listening to this, right? I hadn't yet jumped in, right? Aurora said, she's like, no, nobody. You actually have to go help Papa do work first, and then he'll give you money.
Oh,
so I mean,
good.
like, it really clicked with her because
That's
she
good.
was even explaining it to him.
Yeah. So that's totally got off topic, as you and I tend to do.
It doesn't sound like us.
But it's something. And then another thing, we talked about apps earlier.
Yeah.
What we found for you, like, you guys remember, we used to have a little book.
Yeah.
Of you did your chores and we recorded this.
Yep.
And we went through and then kind of had a ledger. And then so when you wanted to spend something, Mom would always have her book with you.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, how does Cody have $170 and Corryn only has $9?
Yep.
And oh my gosh, Courtney has $400.
Yes.
Like that was our physical one. Well, when we moved to Virginia with the twins, we wanted to start, because now all of a sudden they went from being the babies and always having older siblings to like, well, now you guys are in charge of a lot of things. Like it was kind of a cool experience for them to shift from being babies to the oldest two, and really only two.
Only two.
And so we found an app called Busy Kid,
Yeah.
which was basically a virtual thing. And what we loved about it was we could put in, and I know you guys, what do you mean? They got paid for taking out the trash. We just had to do it.
That was just part of the life, yeah.
Yeah. But it was kind of cool because we could put prices for chores. And
Yeah.
with two of them,
Yep.
it was almost a race sometimes where we had to start saying, okay, this week is Toby, next week is Tayton.
Yes.
Like, because one of them be like, well, I want to buy a new Xbox game. And they'd like every day be doing all the chores before the other one woke up.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, that's no fair. But what we loved is we could pay them, but they didn't get the money instantly.
Right.
They got a debit card, and they wouldn't get paid until Friday for those chores. So they couldn't just like bank a bunch of chores on Saturday and have that money. And
Right.
so it kind of started teaching them that life lesson of when you work, you don't get paid instantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, again, then we'll get back on topic. At our work, because we only bill once a quarter, people only get paid once a month.
Yeah.
And we laughed because your brother's doing a little summer internship to see if he likes finance.
Yeah.
And he had worked other jobs like fast food where he got paid every Friday.
Yeah.
And it was funny. Amber sits up front with him, and he was talking about, like, after his first week, he said, well, when I get paid on Friday, and we just heard Amber start laughing, and he's like, why are you laughing? And she goes, do you not know we only get paid once a month? He's like, wait, what?
I know. I will say I've had a couple friends that, the jobs that they work, they do still get paid weekly, right?
Yeah.
And when they hear that, we only get paid monthly, they're like, how do you do that? And I think Dustin and I were talking to one of our friends out in Arizona, and he was like, it's a hard adjustment. Like, first month or two is kind of wild, right? But then when you think about it, like, most of your bills are due monthly, right? Yeah. It ended up actually working out pretty cool, but it can be a bit of a rough transition.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you're 17.
17, exactly.
And thinking, I got new stuff for my car, and you're like, no. And by the way, we also said you have to save 50% of your check into a Roth IRA, because that's finance dad.
That's where you're working, yeah.
You're only getting paid if you save half.
Yep.
Again, forced savings.
Forced savings.
He'll thank us for it.
He's the one who's like me.
Yeah.
So
and I think, and I know Courtney's off camera and off microphone, but I believe your husband only gets paid every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So then you end up with 26 paychecks versus 12.
Crazy.
And how do you do that budget? Because some months you're going to have 3 paychecks. So there's some budgeting strategies.
Yeah.
I think we might have done videos on that before. Maybe we'll bring it back sometime and do some clips. But
Yeah.
getting paid once a month is actually easier once you get there,
Once you figure
because
it
like
out,
you
yeah.
said, your bills are once a month or once every 3 months versus, well, I got 3 paychecks this month.
Yeah.
What do I do with this money? Like there's a lot of strategies you can do for that. But
Yeah.
going back to where we wanted to end things, which is the Lord will provide,
Yes.
and teaching our kids, maybe you just heard, whatever happens is we're fine.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of Christians kind of fall into that of, hey, God will provide. I'm a Christian. I go to church.
Yeah.
God's going to take care of me. And one thing I love that Dustin said is, God will not take care of you if you keep being stupid with money. And I think that's important to understand is,
Yeah.
really all God promises is you will have, and we would try to drill this into you guys,
Yes.
food, clothing, shelter.
Those 3. Yep.
If you have more than that, you're rich.
You're rich. Absolutely.
And so that type of attitude towards money is really important, even if you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, you got to look at being an American. We are so blessed.
Extremely.
Like, most of us have food, clothing, and shelter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's getting very expensive to buy food and shelter,
Yep.
but we have ways to do it.
Yeah.
You know, Walmart, dollar stores, we have cheap stuff.
100%. Yeah.
And so having that attitude, okay, God will provide means food, clothing, shelter, not
Yes.
food, clothing, shelter, annual trips to Disney World,
Right. Exactly.
brand new car every 3 years. Like,
God does provide. The Bible says it. Bible also calls us to be financially responsible with the money
Yeah.
God's given us. And I think that that's definitely, unfortunately, the part that is very often ignored. Is that, yeah.
yeah. And I think what was cool is your mom was always one, because I'm the where you can go wrong on the other side, where the numbers people can go wrong, is saying, okay, well, God wants me to be a good steward.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can never waste money on anything fun.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, the mom would be like, well, we should go to Disneyland. You know, it's an 8-hour drive from Tucson where we live. We could save on airfare. We'll figure out ways to eat in the hotel.
Yep.
We won't buy food there. Like, but I read it as, this seems like a lot of fun. God's not going to bless this.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was always good. She's like, think about it. We'll figure out, okay, it's going to cost us $5,000.
Right.
If we can save, what's the math, Courtney? 600
The
a
face
month.
She just get,
I think 600 a month.
sure. Don't ask
Probably.
me, Dad. We just talked about it. I'm
All
not
right.
a numbers person.
If I'm wrong, Courtney will fix it. But if we can save 600 a month for a year without hurting ourselves, why would God not bless that? Like,
Right.
we can be frugal. We can make it for family of 6 at the time.
Yep.
We can do $5,000.
Yeah.
If we can't, maybe it's 300 over 2 years.
Yep.
Like, she was always good about that, where the whole time there, I was like, at a younger age, I was not having fun.
Right.
I'm like,
It was just stress.
look at all this money we're spending.
Yep.
Like, a corn dog's no, what's my joke?
I don't even remember. It was $7
Churro.
for a churro. That's
Yep.
what it was. It was a churro.
Like, you $7 for a churro, you could get these for $1 at Costco. Like, I was not having fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, I believe from reading the Bible, like, God wants us to have some fun.
Yeah.
And the way your mom did it was so much better than other people who are like, I deserve a vacation. I'll put it on the credit card and pay it later.
Right. Oh, that's so
Like,
dangerous.
Yeah.
That stresses me out even.
And that was me as an 18-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
my parents taught me very good lessons, and I just blew them because I didn't like being told what not to do.
I can relate.
Yes, I know you can. we learned. Trial
Yeah.
number 1.
That's right.
So I think that's a good lesson
Yeah.
for people to take, whether you're a Christian or not, is have a good attitude towards money.
Definitely.
Food, clothing, and shelter. That's your number 1 priority.
Yes.
Have a plan. Be adaptable with your plan.
Yeah.
Find an app that works,
Yeah.
even if it's cash envelopes.
Yeah.
A
A
spreadsheet.
real life app.
A real life app.
A real life app.
An RL.
An RL.
Yeah, like something that works for you.
Yeah.
And there's no perfect answer.
Mm-mm.
There's no book that you can buy that's
Yeah.
going to say this is exactly how to do it.
Right.
And just have that right relationship. Work hard.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy it. be open, and things like that. So I've had fun,
I have to.
even if it's just us and Courtney listening.
Oh, I love it.
Poor Courtney. I want to do it again.
Same.
We've talked about a lot of things that
Yeah.
we could dovetail off of this.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody out there has ideas, throw them out there in the comments. If you want to ask Dad a question,
Ask Dad. Money Talk with Dad. That's
Yep.
what we're here for.
Explain it, whether it's 3rd grade, 5-year-old, we can do a, college course on housing we've talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things to talk about. So I told the twins I would not say it, but I'm going to do it. So
Oh, no.
smash that like button.
Oh, no.
Make sure you ring the bell. Is that the lingo?
I think that sounds right.
All right. Or please keep listening, whatever you need to do in your app, because we just want to help.
Yeah.
So hopefully do it again.